Stephen, tell me about your company.
So, Rise at Seven is a creative agency focused on search marketing. So, we could executionally do pretty much anything that you could see from some of the biggest ad networks in the world. But the reason that we do those things is for SEO. So, it's traffic driving, it's links or PR coverage acquisition, and it has that ability to get people onto a website and to transact, basically. We are
Mm.
very nearly 2 years old. We will be 2 years old time of recording, like 2 weeks from now. And in that time, we've gone from two people to 75 now in two countries, three offices, and yeah, about 85 clients now, I think. Turnover in year two is about £4 million GBP. And yeah, expanding to the US as we speak. Have an office opening in Chicago over the next few months.
All right. Well, that's a lot of action to get in 2 years, and I know because I've built an agency. I know how hard it is, and so one thing is like agencies are people heavy, and you said you're what 70 people, uh, and so trying to attract quality talent is hard because there's all these big companies, there's the Googles and Facebooks of the world, and then of course there's a gazillion agencies out there. Yet I came across this thread on Twitter where a lot of people said they would want to work for your agency in particular. So tell me, how is that possible? In 2 years, you've been around for 2 years, and people want to work for you. They talk about it on Twitter. How did this come about?
I think it comes from being extremely clear about who we are and who we aren't, and who we are for and who we are not for. And that goes all the way through communication. So, not just with regards to staff, but also clients. Like, we have a very clear position on how things should be done and why things should be done. And I think that what's kind of interesting about that staff recruitment drive that's come off the back of that. Some of that's been organic. So technically, all the recruitment is organic in the sense of referral and inbound to us, and we don't really work with recruitment agents or anything. In terms of headhunting, we have pretty much a full inbound system for acquiring new staff, and we've had about 3,000 job applications over the last year. So the way that we're really doing that is we are talking about very publicly how do you get into Rise at Seven, and we are being very clear about what's expected in that interview process, what's expected. I think what's really interesting from what you just said around Google and Facebook. Google and Facebook are the places that the smartest engineers want to work. That's where you cut your chops. That's where you become, the next level you, and that will set you up for the career wherever you want to go. We want to be that for creatives. So, if you are an aspiring creative, you've come out of university a lot of the time, but sometimes you haven't. Sometimes you've got a bit of experience. Sometimes you've got a bit more experience. But a lot of the people that we hire don't have that experience. We're trying to build a reputation for being a company that will invest in those people, will train those people. We spend a lot of time um, making sure that they have the best education from our point of view in becoming brilliant at digital PR, creative marketing, and technical SEO, basically.
All right, so let me stop you here. So you said you have a great why, and you invest in your people and all that stuff. None of it is particularly unique. However, what I think is unique is that people actually know that you are those things. Most people, most companies that are 2 years old, they might have a fantastic why, but nobody knows they exist. So how do you get your story out there?
I think firstly, it comes down to the clients that we work with. So we're very clear early on in a client relationship before we sign those clients that we're going to talk about the work that we do together. And if you don't want us to talk about that work, the chances are we're not going to work together. So we usually have in contracts that you're going to be case studies, you're going to want to shout from the rooftops about the work that we do for you. And we do genuinely turn down clients who want us to keep it a secret. We don't white label our work. We want to do work that we are enthusiastic about sharing. And as a result, we tend to be much more transparent than a lot of agencies can be for legal reasons, because we've set ourselves up that way where we attract clients who want to be recognized for the work that they do. They want to win awards, and those types of things can be very divisive in the industry. Like, should you care about awards? And you don't have to, absolutely. But all of those divisive issues, I think that there is an upside for an agency when they take a position on those things. We want to win awards. We want to work with clients who want to win awards. We want people who want that on their CV. And likewise, things like um, remote working versus office working versus hybrid. We're an office based organization. Not right now, but we certainly want to be. And we make that very clear early on that the type of people who want to work here tend to be the type of people who want to bounce ideas off everyone else, who want to come in and have that social experience outside of just, I want to do work. I also want to interact with people. I want to learn from people, just not by being in the same spreadsheet as them, but by being in the same room as them and asking questions, and giving those fairly junior people in some circumstances access to people who've been around for 20 years in this industry, who want to give them the time of day to be able to learn it. And I think the way that that really scales, the way that that messaging gets out there, is because we aren't afraid to take a point of view on issues that can be quite divisive, push that out there, and take what comes with it. It's not all
Mhm.
positive. A lot of it is, and we attract the particular people who do want to be in that environment.
So you have strong opinions, particular views about how things should be, and they're maybe, against the mainstream opinion in some cases. But where do you tell this story? Is it like social media? Is it your email list? Is it what are you doing in terms of channels?
We are mostly social media, almost all organic social. We don't really do any paid advertising at all. We don't actually have an email list. That was one of the things that we've definitely done wrong over the first 2 years, because we've got a lot of emails, but we can't really use them. So, um, generally speaking, the way that our story comes across is from our YouTube channel. So our founder, my co-founder and CEO, Carrie Rose, is pretty active on YouTube, does a weekly vlog. And apart from that, it's particularly the individuals' organic social media profiles, and we really push our staff out there. So we don't necessarily hide behind a company Twitter account or a LinkedIn account or anything like that. We do all of that stuff, but we encourage all of our staff to become micro influencers in their own right, and we will share their things, and we will shout
Hmm.
out about what great work they've done, and we will give them credit very publicly about that work. So our story actually scales a lot further than the most passionate people, being me and Carrie, whose agency it is, to a much broader audience of now 75 people who are willing to talk about how proud they are of the work that they've done, and how excited they are about that brief, and all the good things that they're doing. Because
Hmm.
even when it comes down to, as you'll know, founders' social media profiles, one of the best ways to generate leads, but also certainly one of the best ways to get a positioning across. There's only one of you, there's only a couple of you, there's only a few people who really invest in the agency in most places. And I think what we've managed to do a little bit differently is get a lot of people to be very invested and very talkative about the job and how much they enjoy it, and even sometimes think some of the things that they don't enjoy, but publicly talking about what it's like here, being pretty transparent and backing each other up when inevitably you get those kind of social media attacks that come off the back of it, being very, very
Hmm.
supportive of each other.
Well, I know of many companies that have tried to do that, and usually have failed because like maybe there's a missing accountability level. There's no proper systems. It's somehow like it's kind of chaotic. It's like, yeah, let's do it, but then it kind of falls apart. So how is it structured and organized in your case? How do you make sure that everybody does it? Is there a follow-up system? Is somebody owning it? Tell me about the kitchen side of things.
We don't have that. We don't have ownership of the broader social media strategy from the whole team. It comes down to recruitment, and we are pretty picky. We use our values the same as lots of companies do in terms of hiring those people and the behaviors that we expect from those people. But we tend to hire people who are keen on advancing themselves within the industry. Like, we have a lot of ambitious people who want that training, but also want to get the benefits and the advantages that come with that from being on social media, being part of the network of all the people that we know. And I personally think it's something you can't force. Having tried to force it at previous companies as well, where we've got people who do want to build a personal brand. It's not a 9 to 5 thing. It's not something you can do in 5 minute breaks throughout your day and then stop doing it at five. It's one of those things where you're going to actually invest a lot of your own personal time and energy, and it can be very hard at times, emotionally as well as physically. It's not just thinking of things to say, but it's also thinking of what you need to ignore from what's coming back at you. And we're just pretty transparent about how we grow in our own social media profiles as well. Try and give some guidance to people within the business about how it might work, but be really clear that unless you want to put the time in, unless you're going to put the time in, and we aren't going to force you, because we do have people that aren't even on social media. We're not going to force you to do that. But if you want to do that, we're going to retweet you. We're going to talk about the things that you do and the campaigns that you create and the work that you write for other blogs and all that kind of thing. We're gonna back you and give you that scale. So it comes down to the recruitment and hiring the people that actually want to do that. Sometimes that's expensive. Sometimes that's just hiring people with the right attitude and not necessarily all the experience that goes with it, but who want to learn.
Mm. So you basically prefer candidates that are already active on social.
To a degree, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have a load of followers. I don't think that we would hire. We have hired in the past people who have a lot of followers, and those people are the ones that leave to become professional TikTokers and that kind of thing. They make a lot of money off their social profiles. It becomes more than just part of their place in the industry. It becomes their job full time. So although we have hired in the past and still do have people with quite a lot of social media followers, it's not to do with a following. It's very much to do with a willingness to be open, to share, and to engage with people and follow and talk to. Again, being a very young agency, just a couple of years, it's willingness to engage with people who've been around for a long time, people who are just emerging in the industry as well, and having that shared experience on social. So it's absolutely more about being willing rather than actually having the following.
Got it. And you said you're amplifying their, their tweets and so on and so forth. So there is some sort of a system where you track who is posting. Like, have you made Twitter lists, or how are you tracking who in your company is actually tweeting something?
We've got a couple of different ways of doing it. There is a Twitter list on the Rise at 7 account of everyone who works here, which we find quite. I certainly use that on my phone just to flick through and promote people who are talking on Twitter particularly. We have systems generally where people will, even if they aren't necessarily the type of people to self-promote within the business, they would certainly have people who are sharing their things to us to make sure that we do get it out there. So we've got people who are pretty knowledgeable, super smart technical SEOs and CRO managers, and people who don't necessarily want to put themselves out there to so much as a degree and self promote, who are definitely doing some great content in lots of great places. And we have the wider business constantly telling us that this is a great blog post that we've seen. Everyone shares all the stuff they do. Everyone shares the campaigns that they've done. So it's a lot. Actually, the downside of this is the sheer volume of messages that go throughout our business is huge. Like, we have a WhatsApp group that probably has 200 messages on an average day. We have Slack. We have all of that kind of thing. So if anything, the challenge over the last few weeks and months has been trying to tone it down a little bit outside of working hours and making sure that it's not too much.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so, would you say that besides, your values, what you stand for, your principles, encouraging everybody to be on social, and your, company leadership being active, is there anything else that you would say is contributing to your, employer branding?
I think a big part of it is the hiring process that we have as well. So because we're typically hiring creatives, like the vast majority of our team tend to be either from a creative discipline or going into a creative discipline, and to a degree, some of the other more technical channels actually have a large degree of creativity in them as well. we have perpetuated this hiring process where we started to get some really interesting applications from people who are trying to stand out, who are trying to get noticed, because there's, obviously with the pandemic happening and people being laid off and people looking for jobs, there's a huge volume of candidates out there who are desperate to find work. And as a result, like a lot of agencies will be getting a lot of applications. So we started maybe 18 months ago, starting to get some really interesting applications for people who are going well above and beyond to create stuff or send us stuff or make something really interesting. And we've made a point of being very vocal about that, sharing it from all of the company channels and talking to those people very publicly that they've done that. And perpetuating that so that more and more people do it, to the point that we get some sort of interesting application through the post into our office probably every 2 or 3 days. Someone sends something trying to grab attention. We've had some really interesting, cool, weird stuff. Like we had someone who made a Rise at 7 branded sneaker who sent just one and said, just to get my foot in the door. We've had people making flash games. We've had people making, we've got a hazmat suit in the office at the moment, Rise at 7 branded. We've got honestly boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff that people who are thinking about, how do I show off my creativity? Because if I'm a creative and this is the place to be, I need to stand out. We're publicly sharing all of that great stuff that they do. And that just moves the flywheel faster and faster, to the point that we are getting noticed by people who are, in the creative industries for 10, 20 years, who are at the big networks, who are looking for the creative agencies that they would be interested in working at as well. And then we're getting those contacts from people who are, super senior, who can really take our business to different places, as well as that kind of junior people who are looking for the best training and to become, the creatives of the future.
Mm-hmm. So is your value proposition anywhere? Where do you communicate that we're gonna make you the next level star in your field? Because I'm on your website, like it's not obvious where do I need to. Is it in the job ads itself, or where do people see that message?
It's largely social media. So that
Hmm.
website, I built that. It's terrible. It's 2 years old. It was done on a shoestring budget before we launched the place. We've got a new website imminently, which is much cooler and has a lot of this stuff on it. But actually, it's just through social media. A lot of the people who are interested in us have genuinely been tagged, or usually have seen something that we have done that a friend of a friend of a friend has shared. They've seen that campaign and thought it was really cool, and start following us through social media. So we've grown our social followings quite rapidly, even for an agency. I think Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram particularly being some of the bigger channels. And we've got a Giphy channel with, I think, something like 60 million views on our GIFs, and we've got TikTok channel and that kind of thing as well. So we're going directly to the source, the people who are the right type of people to be working for us, and talking about how do we do TikTok for some of the brands that we do. Well, we have to be on TikTok for those people, and that's where that kind of messaging is usually shared directly on the social channels.
Hmm.
And a lot of the time, actually, it's not even
Let me ask
explicit.
you also about. Hmm. Let me also ask you about customer acquisition. So hiring people, you've done a great job, but also in order to hire all these people, you need money, and so how have you gotten so many clients over just this short 2 years?
We have entirely inbound client acquisition strategy at the moment. We are genuinely actually quite good at outbound sales, but we've left that card in the back pocket for the time being. We know, particularly like as we expand internationally, it's going to become very relevant for us. But to this point, it's been all inbound, and a lot of it is referral. And one of the things that actually you were tweeting a couple of weeks ago, Pete, was around being front of mind when someone thinks of a certain thing. Who are the first most mentally available people? And
Hmm.
we have, I
Yeah.
like to think, done a really good job when someone says, "I want SEO, but I would like it if it looked better." If it was more creative, it was more interesting. If it, just because it's SEO doesn't mean it needs to be boring. And those kind of conversations that maybe they happen at a conference, maybe they happen in a chat, maybe they're at a pub, whatever it might be. We are the most mentally available agency for a more creative brand of SEO. And as a result, we have a lot of referrals, and a lot of those referrals are from people that we do not know, who have mentioned that we are the right agency for that particular brief and the only one that they can think of. So loads of referral, loads of social media. For an SEO agency, I think we rank for a couple of things, but it's certainly not been a big part of our strategy to date. It's getting a little bit more prevalent for us, but it's social and referral primarily at the moment.
Well, with did you start with social media from the get go? Is because like with inbound, when you're just starting, you're basically waiting for the leads to come in, and so waiting harder does not generate leads. So it's like you're actively generating something. So is it the same social media virtuous circle with all your staff? Anything else you're doing?
It's definitely scaled up from when it was just me and Carrie starting out, but it was the same channels. It was Twitter, definitely. LinkedIn is absolutely the place that we get more leads than anywhere else. That channel really scales us, and the spread that we can get from some of the content that we post on LinkedIn is huge. So I wouldn't
And is that
necessarily
your company LinkedIn or your personal profiles?
personal profiles. Company LinkedIn does okay, but yeah, absolutely. All of these channels, I'm talking personal profiles pretty much. LinkedIn and Twitter, especially, personal profiles are where we get that kind of widespread attention, definitely. But yeah, we're using
And
the
who
same
is
channels.
the customer you are attracting? Who makes a good customer for you guys? Or like size, industry, anything like that?
Great customers tend to be larger companies that have fairly mature marketing functions. Usually, will have more than one person in their marketing function. Generally, work with several agencies. Probably spend quite a lot on paid media. Turnover certainly north of £10 million a year. Probably north of £100 million a year. Tend to be the right kind of customers for us for a couple of reasons. The type of brief that we get more than anything else, there's two buckets really. One is people who have, or brands rather, who have spent a lot of money on performance marketing for a lot of years and are on that heroin drip of I need another conversion, but I can't build my own brand. I can't have something organic. I can't get that flywheel going myself. I need to be feeding Google constantly and really just want to reduce
Yeah.
that spend. They want to have that brand recognition and that brand awareness outside of their performance marketing channels. That's a big thing for us. We do a lot of that. Because we look a lot like a performance marketing agency, but we have that ability to build brands at the same time. And then the other briefs that we get a lot of are either companies that are the coolest companies who want to stay that way. So we do a lot of fast fashion and fashion generally, for example. They make their money by being on the cutting edge and they want to stay that way and definitely be seen to be that. And then we get a lot of companies actually who maybe aren't that cool, but really understand or want to be cool. They feel like actually we used to be very relevant and now we're not, or we know that there is a big audience for us if we go younger, or if we are trying to attract this particular type of buyer with a larger lifetime value because they've got a lot more of their life ahead of them and that kind of thing. We get a lot of those customers who are keen on becoming culturally relevant and have that SEO objective where it's kind of like a box ticking. Yes, we can drive traffic. Yes, we can acquire customers, but let's think a little bit even more long term than even SEO tends to go and think about how our brand is going to be perceived and how are we going to track brand awareness and how are we going to measure whether people feel more positively about us over the next 6 months, next year, next 2 years.
Gotcha. So when you look at the competitive landscape, there's no shortage of SEO content, PPC agencies. In fact, I think that's like the most competitive agency landscape there is. Uh, Besides your social media game, which seems to be, the center of it, is there anything else where you think you're like out marketing the competition?
I would say the work. Our work is bigger. than you tend to see in our industry. So the executions, the activations that we do are typically what you would probably see from agencies 10, 20, 30 times our size, global networks. We have this ability, I guess, but really this ambition to be able to tie channels up, to go and experiment with new things, to have a go at out of home, to have a go at TV, have a go at whatever we think would be good for the brief that we've got. And then we share that a lot. So we do a lot around promoting the work that we do. And again, it comes back to that contractual piece where clients who sign up with us understand that we are going to talk about what we do for them. And so many companies who are working with SEO agencies, by the nature of the industry as well, it's not like a weird thing. I understand why it's the case, but they don't want to talk about that work. It's very hard to explain what great work you've done when you can't really share about anything about the strategy because someone could rip it off, and you can't talk too much about the results, and you can't really share a lot of the work that you've done. And especially if you are a company that's getting great results, who's got a great strategy, but then the bit that you can share, which is the creative asset, the campaign, the content, it's kind of a little bit crap, then you don't have a leg to stand on. And that's where we're really different to a lot of agencies. We've got bigger executions and we can talk about the results because clients let us do it.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, Stephen.
I know. Thank you.